Hello, welcome to our channel. We are doing a profit update of last week's week in the market. So we're going to have a look at the analysis that we made beforehand and see how well we did. So first off, we're looking at pound USD, and we basically predicted, if you can see the purple arrows, roughly price action was around here when we first made the analysis. So what happened throughout the week? We was either looking for a test above this yellow zone, so hence a push to the upside and close below and then retest before we head higher. And also we was either looking for option 2, which was a test to the downside before we ended up pushing up. So basically there was two different ways you could have got in with pound USD. So the first option was to catch this zone here, which we did, in that full rejection candle plus the huge bullish candle to the upside. Now if you missed that candle, you had a second opportunity, which to catch this retest of this zone, and this candle here confirmed it immensely with that huge rejection coming into here but forced to the upside, and ultimately price sent all the way up to test our key level, so a weekly key level, which is currently closed above. So that's good information for next week. So roughly price wise, at least 170 pips to be made on pound USD following this sort of signal. So now moving on to euro USD. So what we was looking for here was a violation of our structure. Now we had our rejection from this structure here, which was at 1.10531. Now we had a close above, but we wouldn't have entered there because that would have continued. That would have caused us to look in this more of as a bullish move to wait for this level as a rejection. However, it closed below. Then we was then waiting for this level to act again as resistance, which it did in multiple levels, so 1, 2, 3, 4, before it sent price to the downside. Now our level would have been towards this key level here as a take profit, but we broke even, I believe, because of this huge wick candle, which took all the way out here before coming back up. So this was a big news, which is the ECB bank press conference, which caused this huge burst of erratic movement. So ultimately, there was money to be made here, roughly around 60 odd pips there. Nonetheless, news happens, and this is what we account for. It's just a part of trading. So sometimes you could have closed out there if that was happy for you, but we was aiming for this as a target. However, we got caught out there, so not to worry. So moving on to USD JPY, which is here. Now we had the option to look for a retest here. However, we already had the retest, so sometimes what can happen is we get a double retest before we head higher. However, structure closed above, which we were always looking for, and then the structure came below, closed, and then ended up closing above higher, which was our entry point. And as we are currently still in this, roughly just over 100 pips with that for USD JPY, so that would have been a good entry using our video analysis. So finally, or not finally, sorry, next is gold. Now we had two options here, and two of them are more likely to occur into play for next week, but we'll look into this now. So what I mean by next week is that we are waiting for the push here, and then the retest of this level, so price to come into this zone and then push to the upside, and we could have made, or you could have made 2% on that, so around 200 pips before it came back on us. Yeah, before it came back. Now for next week, we could be looking for a double bottom here before we end up going higher, or we could be looking for option 2, which is a push and closure below before a retest of this zone before we head lower. So that will be covered in the next video, specifically for gold. However, in terms of opportunity wise for gold, roughly just about 200 pips on that for gold. So moving on to Bitcoin, what we can see is we was anticipating a push to the upside majority of the way. However, we ended up closing below, so closing lower in this week, well, touching lower rather, and we found that in the option with the sell, and that was as this level here became resistance, and that's 10308. So this level came resistance here. So price closed below, pushed to the upside, which eventually closed below again, but it had multiple rejections here before price ended up closing below with multiple rejections to the upside, and then the EMA switching over nicely, and then entry could have been there for whatever your reason, entry point wise, and to our key monthly level, key weekly level to the T, and that is roughly 400 pips there. So people obviously bought here and it caused the upside, so we'll have a look at that in the analysis video specifically for Bitcoin. And now finally with Ripple, moving on to Ripple. So unfortunately we couldn't get into Ripple as we looked into. Our bias was up to the upside. Now logically, if I didn't draw this out, for this to go lower, we would have to be convinced that this zone is acting as a resistance. Now, price came lower here once, but it didn't act as resistance because we had this huge closure to the upside. Now, what convinced us at this point to go lower was because we had the closure to the downside, rejection twice with this huge candle wick to the upside, which sent price to the downside to test our blue zone at the bottom. This is a very typical high buying point for most people here. So from that point to this point, so zone to zone, roughly just 270 pips with that one. So that would have been a very anticipated trade. However, we got to the push to the upside, so we'll talk about that in the next videos, specifically with Ripple. So that's all for the profit update for this for the last week's video. Now, before we end the video, if you are actually learning from our videos, make sure you're subscribed to our channel, and also our social links are also in the link in the description. So if you'd like to go ahead and follow that, that'd be great. Now, if you are learning from our videos, then yeah, just give us just let us know how we can improve. If you'd like any other type of videos, just let us know. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.